Good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming to the Cedar Park Chamber of Commerce's Moderated Candidates Forum. I'm Tony Moline. I'm the President and CEO of the Chamber of Commerce here. And we want to welcome you tonight. We want to also thank all of the candidates for being here. We really appreciate the time and effort for not only being here for this forum, but also for what you're asking from the voters, which is to serve the community. We really appreciate you offering that to everybody. Just to go over the rules, I've already gone over these with the candidates, but to let everybody in the audience know, each candidate is going to give a 2-minute introduction. Afterwards, I'll ask questions. Each candidate will have 60 seconds to answer those questions. We'll alternate who gives the first answer. After the question part of the forum is concluded, each candidate will be given 2 minutes to make closing remarks in reverse order this time. And then, for those of you who are interested, we will have hopefully a little time for the candidates to stay and discuss with each one of y'all individually any questions you may have that weren't covered in this forum. If time allows, we may take a few questions, but as history has shown, we usually don't have a whole lot of time left over either. So that's why we have time before and after the forum for any questions you may have. With that, we'll go ahead and get started. First thing is introductions. Remember, candidates, Michelle will give you a 15-second notice and then a stop notice, and I will interrupt you. So we're gonna just FYI, fair warning. So for introductions, Mr. Bennett, you're first.
Thank you, and I want to thank Tom and the Chamber for hosting this event and inviting all the candidates. I also want to thank my wife and my children for their undying support and patience. I appreciate that very much. I was born and raised in Texas, and I joined the military when I was 18. I returned to Central Texas in 2005 after having served the nation as an Army chaplain in Iraq from 2003 to 2004. I've been a Cedar Park resident and property owner for the last 9 years and 9 months. During this time, I have served the community as an academic counselor and professor at Austin Community College. In addition to my professional work, I voluntarily served as president of the Austin Community College Employees Union. In that role, I have a reputation as a serious yet fair employees advocate, selected by my peers and a senior member of the ACC Board of Trustees to serve on the 2014 Bond Advisory Committee, which provided funding for the expansion of the Cedar Park campus, which I work at. Cedar Park is a great suburban city that is well on its way to becoming a destination city. And that's why the City Council needs new leadership and more diversity of ideas. The current City Council has become an echo chamber because the mayor, as leader of the establishment, has enthusiastically promoted the practice of appointing his political allies to empty city council seats vacated by his political allies. While the city charter does allow this novel practice, many people I've talked to, people who are not part of the establishment, like myself, understand that this practice is a moral hazard and denies Cedar Park residents their right to choose their city council members in free and fair elections. Again, thank you to the Chamber of Commerce for hosting this event and allowing all voices to be heard.
Mr. Powell.
Thank you very much, and good evening. My name is Matt Powell, and I'm a candidate for re-election as mayor of Cedar Park. And I'd like to thank the Chamber for the opportunity to participate. Though I've met the majority of those of you in the room, please allow me to provide a bit of background on myself. First, I wouldn't be here before you as a candidate or the man I am without the love and support of my wife Heather and my beautiful daughter Lark. They're not able to be here today. My daughter is a very precocious 6, and we try to keep her on a tight schedule, but I couldn't possibly share my background and qualifications without highlighting them first. I own a small business doing business and communications consulting for a number of other small and medium-sized businesses, primarily in Central Texas. From helping them find efficiencies, doing things like developing philanthropy programs and strategies. My mission is perhaps not unlike the Chamber's, to improve the profits and perceptions of the businesses I serve. Speaking of service, after serving 7 years as a city council member, I was deeply honored to be selected by the citizens as their mayor in 2012. The role of mayor is a major responsibility and growing more so with each passing year. It demands experience and vision. You are being asked to select someone to be your lead ambassador, both inside and outside the city. And you must decide who among us will you select to represent you as we meet with CEOs and CFOs in pursuing economic development. Who will you select to share the values of this beautiful community with others? And who will be best able to work with our fine city council to be that first among equals and lead with the self-identified core values, including integrity, innovation, and professionalism? When I first ran for council in 2005, I had no idea what it would mean on a personal level, and it surprised me how deeply meaningful being on the city council has been, and how it's changed me. It demands leadership, courage, and faith. I continue to build on all three, as we all do, and above all, I cherish the amazing relationships that I've forged. I have the privilege of working with hundreds of involved and concerned residents, many of whom are in this room, and I cherish their expertise and enjoy their friendships. We're in a golden age. It's clearly the greatest time in Cedar Park's history. Thank you.
Mr. Caputo?
Good evening. I'm Kavi Caputo. I have been a resident of Cedar Park since 1988. My wife and I moved out here while I was still in law school. Cedar Park is my home, and my heart is here. We've raised our family here. I've watched the city grow, and I've had an opportunity to assist in helping the city grow. Currently, I serve the city by serving as a member of the 4A board, or the Economic Development Board. We're working to bring interesting and innovative employers to the region, which is, I think, the most important job we have right now, is to try to improve our employment sector in the city. I served on the city council from 1996 to 2002, and again from 2005 to 2010. These were really dynamic times in the city. Major changes occurred. They were both periods of incredible growth. And the councils that I served with did an outstanding job of articulating a vision for the city that has stood the test of time, and also establishing the infrastructure and the foundation necessary to make the city what it is today. I would agree with Mayor Powell that this is a wonderful time for the city, probably the best time the city's ever had. But it couldn't be doing this without the work that we did in the past. We had to make difficult decisions. We had to figure out how to prioritize things for the city. One of our major priorities was always to make sure that we had the safest community we could. Sometimes, and in Williamson County this is a challenge, sometimes we had to raise the tax rate to do that. We always did that. We did what was necessary to keep the citizens safe, and then we began lowering the tax rate. And that's the history and the experience and the abilities that I bring, is I know how to do these things, and I know how to set the priorities for the citizens. Another aspect that we've done, that I did in my time on the council, was to begin the transformation. 1890 Ranch came while I was on the council in the second round I was in. The hospital came in the second round that I was in. The Cedar Park Center and the Texas Stars. These are things that began the change that has led us to become the city that people want to move to. And I think I'm the most qualified candidate to replace my good friend Lowell Moore on place 4 on the council.
Mr. Norton?
I'd like to thank the Chamber and all of you for coming out tonight. It's a great opportunity to get to visit with all of you. I see many faces that I know. Over the past couple months, I've been making the rounds. I've personally knocked on the doors of over 1,000 voters in Cedar Park. During that time, I've gotten to know you well. I've gotten to learn more about Cedar Park, and I've actually gotten to learn some things not about Cedar Park. I've been asked for my opinions on ISIS and Vladimir Putin, and let me tell you, to be very clear, Vladimir Putin will never set foot in Cedar Park on my watch. All joking aside, it's been a real pleasure to get to visit with you. I'm so thankful for the support that I've had from people like you, friends and family. I'm honored to receive the endorsement of our state senator, Charles Shortner, received the endorsement of Councilman Stephen Thomas and many other elected and local appointed officials. For the past 3.5 years, I have served Cedar Park on the Community Development Corporation. I also am currently serving on the Zoning Ordinance Advisory Committee, which is as boring as it sounds, but it is important work. I also served on the Bond Advisory Task Force for the most recent November bond election, and I also served on the Bell Boulevard Redevelopment Study Group. I have a vision for Cedar Park. My vision for Cedar Park includes diversifying the tax base, continuing the successes of the city, of bringing strong retail, but also shifting our focus towards office development so that we're having people who are working here during the day and growing the sales tax base so that we're striking a better balance between sales tax revenues and property tax revenues. I'd also like to, on that same note, work to reduce the property tax to be reflective of the dramatic increases that we've seen in property values in recent years. And finally, I'd like to work with our public safety officials to continue to ensure that they have the resources and technology and training that they need to continue to keep us safe. So thank you again. My name is Katie Moore.
Ms. Bowyer?
Good evening. Excuse me for a second. Thank you for coming this evening. I'm Christine Boyer, and I'm currently serving on the City Council in Place 6. I'm running for election because I'm so proud of the progress we've made in Cedar Park and the growth. And I want to continue this and make this place a great place to live, work, play, and raise our families. I have 3 primary goals in what I see for the future. First being attracting large employers and growing jobs. Second, also diversifying the tax base to ease the burden of homeowners and reduce our dependency on property taxes. And finally, keeping public safety as a priority, ensuring that our fire and police departments have the resources, the equipment, and the support to keep our community safe. There is a reason why that Cedar Park is ranked one of the fastest growing and best cities to live in right now. That's not through blind luck or accident, but through careful design, planning, and execution from previous members like Mr. Caputo and Mayor Powell. And we are benefiting that today in our city. I feel that I have the leadership skills as well as the experience to continue down this path of success. I have over 19 years of experience in the high-tech sector, management consulting, as well as with state government in the finance and budget area. I have a master's degree from the University of Texas LBJ School of Public Administration and a finance degree from from Trinity University. Being on the council, I've learned a lot since August, more than I think I needed to know. But it's been fascinating. I have a deeper appreciation and understanding of the comprehensive plan, our operating budget, all the things that go into running the city on a day-to-day basis. And we need this momentum to continue, and that's what I want to be, the continuation of the momentum to keep Cedar Park a great place to live.
Ms. Talman?
Thank you, Tony, and thank you to the Chamber. Thank you to all of you for being here. I'm a registered nurse and a professional healthcare administrator with a Bachelor of Science degree in nursing from Villanova University and a master's degree from Teachers College, Columbia University in New York. I've lived in Cedar Park for 17 years with my husband, Don Garitano, and our children, Gina, Victor, and Giancarlo. For 14 years, I had the pleasure to serve on city boards and commissions, including the 2001 General Obligation Bond Task Force, the 4B Community Development Corporation Board from 2002 to 2011. I served as the Vice President of that board from 2006 to 2011, and the Arts Board from 2011 to 2012, and on the Parks Board from 2012 to 2014, and I chaired the Parks Board until it was sunset. I love our city, and I'm running to give our citizens a choice and a voice, because I cherish democracy in our republic and because I believe that our leaders should be elected by their citizens. Today, in Cedar Park, 4 out of 7 members of our current city council were initially appointed to their positions, not elected in free, fair, contested elections by our citizens. The city council is supposed to serve at the pleasure of the electorate. Instead, our city council serves at the pleasure of city council, mostly handpicked by insiders, not initially elected by the citizens, without the debate or the dissent on issues or priorities that an election provides, and no choice. I'm running to give a voice to those who believe it's time to adopt land use policies that promote sensible growth and allow us to diversify our tax base, that it's time to respect private property rights, that it's time to develop a strategic financial plan to allow us to execute our Parks and Open Space Master Plan and our Trails Master Plan. And I'm running because I love our city. I love what I've been able to contribute to the growth of our city, and I would like the opportunity to continue that as your city councilwoman in place 6.
Okay, for a moment, if you have an empty chair next to you, would you please raise your hand? Anybody who is in the back who needs to grab a chair real quick, please look for one. There we have several. We're trying to cut down on the noise from the chairs. Getting out of the closet because it's going to show up on our video. So thank you. Now we get to the question part. Candidates, please remember you only have 60 seconds now. And again, I will cut you off. The Bell Boulevard redevelopment project has important long-term impacts for the businesses in Cedar Park. What do you feel is the most important piece of this redevelopment? Mr. Bennett.
Yes, I've done a lot of research on this project, and it's well known that it's a very much needed project. The corridor presently is backed up with traffic. ways. Also, there's an aesthetic to the area that needs to be improved, and also adding walking spaces and, so folks can walk around downtown. And another feature is adding the old Bell Boulevard district, which would be an entertainment district. I fully support this project. Can you repeat the question, sir?
Yes, the Bell Boulevard redevelopment project has important long-term impacts for the businesses in Cedar Park. What do you feel is the most important piece of this redevelopment?
Right. So there are a lot of small businesses right there which I'm concerned about. And these businesses, some of them have been there for years, and they will need careful consideration as we move forward with the development project, which is also needed.
Mr. Powell?
Thank you. I was actually really pleased to see the City Council in our last retreat actually name this project as their #1 priority, and I think that's certainly reflected in what we've heard from residents. One of my philosophies is that government doesn't create this sort of economic development, but we can create the environment in which it takes place, and that's really the most important thing. We're going to need to bring in private developers on this that really know what they're doing. But think about what we could have if we're successful. We'll have a definable downtown, which we've never had before, and wouldn't that be something? And what I say is that at times Cedar Park seems like a really, really nice house with a front door that needs some work, and 183 is our front door, and I look forward to fixing it.
Mr. Caputo?
Yes, thank you. On this topic, I actually have quite a bit of experience as an attorney. I'm working with a client right now that's redeveloping an 85-acre former mall into a public-private partnership that will be an educational institution at the center and have a high-density mixed-use community develop around it. I've spent the last 6 years developing the Property Owners Association guidelines, the master covenants, the design criteria. Those are all things that the city is going to have to work through, and I have hard-earned experience doing that right now. I think I'm probably the best qualified person to work with the city as a council member to alert them to these issues and to figure out solutions that work for Cedar Park. One of them I think we might want to consider is to engage the services of an outside third-party private sector developer who would not be the developer of record of the project, but would solely advise the city. So the city can make sure that the things that it's coming up with are actually going to be economically viable. We're a city, we're really not developers, and I think we need some good assistance from somebody outside, but someone who's not going to have a vested interest in how the project turns out.
Mr. Norton?
Yeah, thank you for the question. I think Bell Boulevard will offer a lot of great amenities for citizens around town, but most importantly, it will serve as an economic engine in the heart of Cedar Park. And what that will do is allow us to diversify our tax base so that we're striking a better balance between property taxes and sales taxes. On that note, I'm the only candidate up here who served on the Bell Boulevard redevelopment working group. I worked with Councilman Van Arsdale on that group. I also served on the Bond Advisory Task Force, which made a recommendation to City Council. I was the only member of the Bond Advisory Task Force to fight for Bell Boulevard. We submitted 2 lists to City Council. One included no funding for Bell, one included funding for Bell. 14 members of the Bond Task Force supported no funding for Bell, including my opponent, and I was the only candidate to push for that to City Council. Redeveloping Bell Boulevard is not just important, it is critical for Cedar Park's future.
Ms. Boyer?
I was also on the Bond Advisory Task Force, and Kate, I don't quite remember the vote as you do. But I consider Bell Boulevard a huge opportunity for economic growth in Cedar Park. There's going to be a lot of jobs created, not only from a retail perspective, a sales tax perspective, but all the development that's going to go on prior to Bell being the full destination piece, the infrastructure, the design leading up to the creation of Bell. And we're already starting the process of that. We've already engaged in meeting with engineering firms to get the process started since the bond package was passed by the voters in November. So work on Bell has started. There's a lot of great opportunities. It's going to mean a lot of economic growth and jobs for Cedar Park. And we're fulfilling the vision that was started years ago, long before the Bell Boulevard Task Force. So I welcome it. I think there's a great future in it.
Ms. Talman?
Well, I too am excited about the Bell Boulevard project. I think the opportunity to develop high-density, mixed-use development in the center of our town will be very energizing to our city and make it a much more attractive place to live, work, play, and do business. I'm excited about the fact that part of this development includes making a beautiful natural area actually accessible by creating a new road. And when you think about where the most expensive real estate is, the most desirable real estate in a community, it's the real estate that borders a park. It's the real estate that overlooks a park. In New York, the most expensive real estate in town is Park Avenue, right along Central Park. And so as we have an opportunity to develop this area, it's going to really enhance our quality of life. I want to make sure that the small businesses who've been anchors in our city for many, many years are handled appropriately, that they don't lose their businesses in this process.
The 2015 bond program was one of the biggest bond packages the city of Cedar Park has ever passed. The bond package for streets and roads is $63 million and was approved by 74.6% of voters. What do you feel is the most important transportation project other than Bell Boulevard? Mr. Powell?
Other than Bell Boulevard, unfortunately, I'm going to have to cheat and pick a 1A and a 1B. I think that the Anderson Mill Road project, which is currently under design, is tremendously important, not only for mobility. Leander has thousands of home sites ready to develop on the northern end, and a lot of those people are going to intend to traverse through our city every day on their way down to Austin. And so we need to make sure they can get through efficiently and safely, and maybe give them somewhere to shop on the way. And there's also some very dangerous turns on there that we're looking forward to straightening out. In addition to that, there's the GAP project, as we call it, on 1431. You see the big construction going on to the east, all the stuff to the west is done, and there's a space in the middle where it's going to go down to fewer lanes, and that will eventually bottleneck. And I'm proud to not only be moving forward on that, but as your Cedar Park Campo representative, I was actually able to just get a $10 million award. So that project is moving ahead at very little cost to Cedar Park residents.
Mr. Caputo?
I think the most important road project, if we're just going to isolate it to that, is a project that most people don't really think about, which is to extend New Hope Drive to the east to Reagan Boulevard. Right now, that road kind of meanders into the Lakewood Country Estates, and it's very difficult for emergency vehicles to get to the eastern side of the city on the north side of the city. So building that road and pushing it through so that there's a straight shot north of 1431 to relieve some of the traffic on 1431 and to give emergency services another option to get over to the east side of town is probably the most important project, other than Anderson Mill and things like that, which are already underway. But the New Hope Road extension is one that most people don't look at, don't think about, because you can't see it. It's on the other side of 1431, and nobody really drives back there except occasionally our fire trucks and emergency vehicles. So we need to get that road done. I'm really looking forward to potentially being able to help get that done.
Mr. Norton?
Yeah, I would actually agree. I would reiterate that I do think Bell Boulevard is the most important of the projects, but beyond that, Anderson Mill will provide greater capacity for those people going north-south, especially during high traffic hours of the day. I would agree with Mr. Caputo on the importance of New Hope for the specific reason that there's some really nicely located land out there that once we develop New Hope Boulevard will give us really good opportunities for continued development, and that will help us to continue to, again, diversify our tax base.
Ms. Boyer?
For selfish reasons, I consider the construction on 1431 to be the most important since I live in that area. And it's been very painful to navigate through that particular area. So to echo what everyone else has already said, Anderson Mill, New Hope, these are all the things that we explored during the bond advisory board, and that's why we recommended these particular projects to move forward. So that's, I don't think we differ very much in our philosophy here of what we consider important.
Ms. Talmon?
I would say New Hope Road. I agree with Kavi on that one, and my reason is personal safety and public safety. Right now, you're rocketing along New Hope Road, and then you've got to lower your speed because you're winding into a residential subdivision, and there are kids playing there, and it really needs to be properly developed to help keep that neighborhood of Lakewood Estates safe. And also, I agree with Caden, roads lead to commerce. As we have better developed roads, will bring more commercial business to our city.
Mr. Bennett?
Yes, I appreciate the fact that all of these projects that we've been talking about are very important. But I also want to call attention to my neighborhood, Riviera Springs. And I want to say this. I want to say that there was an article a few months ago actually it was in November of 27th. It has to do with the flooding in my neighborhood. Here it is right here. In this article, it says that the cost for building curbs, gutters, roadside drainage, and et cetera in the Riviera Springs and the other areas that need these additions would be around $62 million. The city manager answered this by saying that the annual operating fund of the city is $42 million. And that's a bit of a non sequitur, because we could use bond money in order to fix our neighborhood at curbs, gutters, and those sorts of things. Not that I'm saying that the other projects aren't important, because they very much are. But what about us in Riviera Springs? And what about the missing middle in our planning?
Thank you, Mr. Bennett. The Chamber and the city continue to grow our partnerships by co-hosting Heritage Festival and Cedar Fest and Taste of Cedar Park. What do you feel would be a great next step in this partnership, and how do you feel this will benefit businesses? Mr. Caputo.
I think it's very important that the city and the chamber work together to promote the city and to attract businesses here, and really for the chamber to be the mouthpiece to the council and the city of what the business community needs in Cedar Park. So I think there's an effort underfoot to maybe partner with the chamber on a permanent location, which has always been something the chamber's wanted, and I hope that that goes forward, and I would look forward to working on that. And I think, we can begin maybe wrapping the chamber into more of the economic development activities that we go on, because again, you speak for the business community, and who better to go with the city to attract new businesses than the people who speak for the business community.
Mr. Norton.
Yeah, I would echo that. The Heritage Festival and the Taste of Cedar Park are excellent events. I can vouch for them personally. The Taste of Cedar Park's a really great event. Continuing events like that would be really beneficial, I think, for the city. Also, shining light just on some of the really special businesses that we do have here in town. I'm a member of the Chamber, and I go to a lot of their networking events. There are a lot of really exciting things happening in Cedar Park that, honestly, I think a lot of us maybe don't know about, because they're just not quite as known. And so I think that that's something we can continue to do. I'd love for the City Council to work with the Chamber to continue to promote these local businesses and try to give them a real good opportunity to succeed.
Ms. William.
As part of our vision to bring in larger employers into Cedar Park, I think there's opportunities for the council, the city, and the chamber to work together to create programs and conferences to entice larger businesses to come in, showcase our city, showcase what Cedar Park has to offer, other than being a bedroom community. So what I'd like to see more is that type of partnership where we can have conferences, have trade shows, in addition to just the arts and festivals, but things that will drive forward economic growth.
Ms. Talman.
The city of Denton, Texas sends 40 people to South by Southwest in Austin every year to market their city and to try to get some of these startups and these new tech companies that are at the fast pitch competitions at the accelerators and that are presenting to come to their city and make it their home. The city of Cedar Park has not resourced our economic development staff to participate in South by Southwest in a meaningful, visible way. Right now, interactive is bigger than music. 80,000 people come to Austin for South by, and interactive is bigger than music. I think a great partnership would be to partner with the Chamber to have a very big, visible presence at South by Southwest. We've had great relationships with the Chamber in the past. I served on the team that recruited Triad to build our hospital with the Chamber in 2004 when we had the economic development contract, and we can land big companies and big employers again.
Mr. Bennett.
I very much appreciate the events that the Chamber has done. I've enjoyed them a great. We were out there at the Heritage Festival the other weekend, and we enjoyed that quite a bit, so thank you very much. In my campaign material, I mentioned that one of the things that I'd like to see the city do, is start a small business development and innovation center. I think that entrepreneurs are the future. Entrepreneurs are the future, and we can help them, and this is good government. We can help community members in our city come in and do their business plan, do demographic work, lay out turf for their business. We can resource that, we can co-office that, and I think that the Chamber, that would be a natural fit. I know you're doing a lot of things, leadership, Cedar Park, etc. This would be a new layer. This would be something where we can bring in innovators, both large and small businesses, and see if we can have the next Dell in our community.
Mr. Powell?
It's always hard to go last because you've heard a lot of really good ideas in the past. So, and by the way, for those who didn't attend Taste of Cedar Park this year, make sure you get your tickets early next year. It was right out here in the Sculpture Garden, and it was really one of the darndest events. As I stood there at that event and looked out, and not only are people walking around, you know, sipping wine in a Sculpture Garden and all the restaurants, and by the way, it's way more restaurants than we had in the city 10 years ago, but looking out, and we're kind of in ground zero of economic development here. It was just it was a great night for Cedar Park and filled me with a lot of pride. I guess I'll answer with a fun one since we had some other good ideas. In my State of the City a couple of years ago, I encouraged the city to look for new traditions and new fun things to do, and one of the ones I've had is, you know, I love the Heritage Oak, and December is just the greatest time for that, but what if we found some other ways to utilize that and light it up other times of the year and bring out local businesses to sponsor that? I'd love to, that'd be a fun one to maybe work with the Chamber on someday.
The City of Cedar Park continues to see a great mixture of businesses come to our city. What types of businesses would you like to see come to Cedar Park? Mr. Norton?
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, I've really enjoyed seeing a lot of the health industry and technology industries coming into town. I think one thing, Cedar Park City Council, I'd like to commend them. They've done a really good job of helping to facilitate a lot of retail growth here in town. I think it's time we start to consider transitioning, and I think many members of the council would agree with me, not just from retail, but also to trying to recruit office development. Like I said, if we can get people here, working here during the day, instead of driving down to Cedar Park, spending their breakfast, lunch, and afternoon spending dollars in Austin, that'll drive up our sales tax revenues, and that will allow us to decrease the property tax rate. I think that, you know, tech and healthcare industries are really exciting opportunities and seem to be sort of the popular way to go lately, and we've got a lot of good opportunities for other businesses to come and pair with those. So I think those would be great opportunities to continue to explore.
Ms. Boyer?
I believe that high tech is just beginning in Cedar Park. Being in high tech myself, I think there's opportunities to bring in even larger companies, especially ones like Google, or down the street from Arnold Palmer, we have Apple, we have Oracle, and I don't see any reason why we can't have another large employer such as that in Cedar Park to drive not only economic development and growth, but more jobs for the citizens and good paying jobs. Now, as far as diversification, there's obviously other industries we can bring in. We have a good saturation of retail. Building office parks would be another idea that I would support. Bringing in engineering firms. Basically, any business that we can relocate to Cedar Park and minimize the traffic going back to Austin or Round Rock would be ideal. Plus, I think diversity is needed. We can't do, you know, there's different types of populations that live in Cedar Park, and we need to make sure that the jobs are also diversified, not just, you know, the high-paying, high-tech jobs, but also more of the, you know, blue-collar jobs as well.
Ms. Dalma?
I think that we can leverage our strength in healthcare to attract additional employers to our city, additional jobs. There's an entire realm of personalized medicine that marries technology and healthcare that is the future. You know, in 5 years, it's going to be malpractice to prescribe medicine without pharmacogenetic testing, without knowing exactly how your liver metabolizes medication, right? This is a rapidly growing industry, and I foresee a time where with our strength, our current strength in healthcare, it would be a natural to try to attract these types of industries to our town. So I think leveraging our strength in healthcare, marrying it with technology would be great for our city. I'm glad to see that some entrepreneurs are starting co-working spaces in our city. I learned about the Hamlet the other day. I think it's a great idea because you can get a synergy of ideas, and from that, new businesses are born.
Mr. Bennett?
So in going over the comprehensive plan, I noticed one thing. There's a pullout, and that pullout has this. It says 49% of Cedar Park residents make between $100,000 and $150,000 per year. And in looking at that pullout, I noticed that there wasn't a pullout that described what it was that the 49% that was left out of that, I'm sorry, the 51% that was left out of that pullout. And I've seen lots of numbers. I've seen mostly published by the City Council. I've seen the numbers of the average income in Cedar Park. And that means the most wealthy person and the most poor person, and all the way down, it's all combined together. And so that kind of skews the numbers up. And so I wondered to myself, what's happened to the middle? Are we only going to have really high-paid executives and service employees who make next to nothing? And so my answer to the question is, we need good jobs that satisfy the needs of the middle in Cedar Park. Thank you.
Mr. Powell?
Thank you. Yeah, I agree with those that are calling for more office development. I've been saying for a while now that our nighttime population in Cedar Park's not too bad. We need to up our daytime population because a number of things happen when you do that. You attract better restaurants because they get a lunch crowd, and our retail stores do better, and you create an office community where people really want to work. The council recently commissioned a study to truly find out what would diversify our economy. We can base it on what we think or on feelings, but we really want to see how to further recession-proof our economy, and so we've actually hired an economist to do just that. You know, so if oil further tanks or some other sector tanks, I want to make sure that it doesn't take the Cedar Park economy down with it. So we need to figure out what those are. And incidentally, the last company that was incentivized by the city was actually a call center, which is going to provide some lower paying jobs, and I'm really excited to further diversify our economy in that way as well.
Mr. Caputo?
So I'll go last and echo what everybody else said. We need more offices in the city. That's been the plan for a long time. It's difficult to get the commercial real estate market to just go build spec office space. They like to have tenants. We've also run into this when we're doing economic development, where we have companies that want to move here and they want to move into 50,000 square feet and we don't have anything. So it's kind of a chicken and egg problem. I think the city's going to have to use the tools we have with 4A and 4B to maybe work through some of that. And I think we're going to have to be careful about our future land use because the city isn't going to get any bigger. Our land is limited, and the more land that develops into residential neighborhoods and things like that is going to take away our ability to develop office space. In terms of specific employers, you know, we brought some really interesting people here recently. Firefly Space Systems, they're building rockets here. They're going to launch them on the Texas coast. Voltavox, which is a company out of Germany that builds hybrid battery packs. That's an assembly job, and they ship them all over the country. We're their North American headquarters. I think those are the kind of companies we need to continue to look for that are moving into the new economy and the future of the country.
Cedar Park continues to be one of the safest cities in Texas. We utilize a smart 911 system, educate our youth on fire safety with the HEATS program, and we're about to build fire station number 5. What would you do to plan to help continue this trend? Ms. Boyer.
I think one of the first things I want to look at is taking care of the men and women who keep our city safe. They're at the front lines of everything that we consider protection in our city. So that would be one of the first things that I would support. Secondly, making sure that there's adequate funding to make sure we have the best equipment, that we have the best training and certification, keeping ahead of events and keeping ourselves apprised of new techniques, new technology, and making sure that our folks are equipped what they need to do their jobs.
Ms. Talaha.
You know, we have an award-winning fire department, and we have an award-winning police department. We have an ISO 1 rating. So I would say that for our fire department, which helps lower our homeowners insurance premiums, and we have a lot to be grateful for in terms of the excellence that we see in our police and firefighters. We spend 53% of our budget on public safety in terms of our operating budget. And with our growth, I want to make sure we can continue to resource and attract the best and the brightest to our police department and our fire department. We've not done a compensation and benefits study in the last few years to really look at where they are compared to the rest of the market. And I'd like to be able to attract and keep the best and the brightest, resource them with the best training, build fire station number 5, expand our police administration building, and not wait so long to do it. Don't require people to work in an office that with 3 people that should have been built for 1.
Mr. Bennett.
Of course, we spend most of our budget on police and fire and other services that keep us safe, as well we should. But what's happened to the firefighters is that their salary has not kept up with the cost of living in Cedar Park. And so many of our firefighters or happen to live in other cities and commute to Cedar Park. It's also true that these firefighters have lost their retirement benefits, some of their retirement benefits. And it's also true that some of the retirees have a very low cost of living allowance each year that doesn't keep pace with the other cities in our community in Central Texas. And so I think it's time for police and firefighters to get a fair deal and have access to the community that they work in and keep us safe. And so one of the things that I think we should do in order to shore up our great firefighters and keeping our is raise their wages, raise their benefits, give them a fair deal.
Mr. Powell?
Thank you. Yeah, the job one is to really make sure that our police officers and firefighters are fairly compensated, that we're competitive in the region, and that they have both the training and the equipment to do their job as well as possible and as safely as possible. It's true that it's been bandied about more than 50% of our budget goes to public safety, and I always say you can tell what's important to someone based upon what they spend their money on. Our firefighters are award-winning, ISO 1 fully certified. I'm, by the way, happy to carry the endorsement of the professional firefighters. Recently, we joined the Regional Intelligence Center for the police and are already getting some great returns on that. Fire Station 5 is in the works, and so is an expanded police department. Another thing that I want to look at is continuing to find specialized trainings. For instance, we have a lot of firefighters that are Swiftwater trained, and that should give all of you a lot of confidence when we have potential flood events like we had recently.
Mr. Caputo?
I remember a time when we were not able to attract qualified applicants to the police department. They ran 10 people short pretty much every year. I remember a time when the city wasn't hiring firefighters because they couldn't afford it. So I've had to deal with those issues in the past. I want to continue to deal with them in the future. I think the ISO 1 rating is very important. That carries with it a lot of things. You have to have 4 people on a truck. That means more employment costs. You have to be committed to that. And in the past, I've been committed to that to the point that we've raised the tax rate to accomplish these things and to make sure that we have what we need. There's some interesting things that I've learned as I've been running this time around about the benefits packages that other departments are offering. And it's almost like we're getting back to that period that we were in back in the 05-06 period where suddenly we become uncompetitive. And I don't know how that's happened over the last couple of years, but I think we definitely need to engage in conversations with our neighbors. We need to do what we did back then, which was to commission a formal study of what we need to do to become competitive, and we need to come up with a plan to pay for it and make it go forward.
Mr. Norton?
Yeah, thank you. I'm absolutely committed to making sure Cedar Park continues to be one of the safest places in Texas to raise a family. As Ms. Talamo mentioned, our fire department has an ISO 1 rating, which, as she mentioned, has many benefits, including a reduction in homeowners insurance premiums. And while that's important, more importantly, it means that they have the resources they need to keep us safe and to keep themselves safe while they're protecting us. I served on the bond task force, and during that service, I made a recommendation to City Council to expand the Cedar Park Police Department, police station. I also made a recommendation to build fire station number 5. I think that it's important that we continue to outfit our firefighters and our police officers with the equipment and technology and training that they need to continue to keep us safe.
The Cedar Park Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors continues to support many of the initiatives the city promotes. Recently, the board passed a resolution in support of a special election authorizing the sale of 14.37 acres of undeveloped parkland very close to this location. What are your thoughts for the future of this undeveloped parkland? Ms. Dalma?
Could you repeat that in terms of which specific parcel, the location?
It's right behind here. It's actually adjacent to where they're building the new Austin Regional Clinic, right at the end of that stuff.
Oh, okay, okay. Commercial use for the undeveloped parkland. Depends on what the market would bear. I think that we have to be sensitive to market realities and allow developers to bring proposals that will be consistent with the needs of the market and be open to them. Certainly, when you change a land use, you have to be sensitive to market realities, and so I would encourage a use that makes sense in the market and that will be economically viable.
Mr. Bennett?
I spent a lot of time thinking about the future land use map and the future land use plan. And while I appreciate the desire to help this community become a destination city, and I appreciate and respect the commitment to city planning, often what I've seen a city council that gives itself overblown and undue power over the interests of landowners. And I don't see how you call yourself a conservative if you don't respect the rights of property owners for their own land. And so I would hope that the city council, and I'm going to be weak on this question, of course I'm an outsider, but what I do know is that property rights matter. If you call yourself a conservative, you should carefully consider whether or not the interests of landowners should be overruled by city council. And that's my answer. Thank you.
Mr. Powell?
Thank you. Yeah, the piece of land in question, which is well defined on the ballot, incidentally, you can all check it out. It's probably not an ideal place for a park. It's not really somewhere you're going to probably put a pocket park behind Austin Regional Clinic right off a traffic circle, some ways away from a neighborhood that could really fully utilize it, especially with the library potentially going in right over here. I think that a commercial use out there, office or something else like that, would really be in keeping with what's going on around it. You want to make sure it's respectful to the town center neighborhood here, and that's why we have businesses that are considered more transitional in nature. And to me, good city planning allows for those transitions. But state law requires anytime that you want to sell a piece of parkland, you need to ask your voters if it's okay, and that's what the city's doing this time.
Mr. Caputo?
Yes, I certainly support the city's effort to undedicate that as parkland. It'll be Proposition 1 on the ballot, so as the mayor said, everybody look at that when you go vote. I think the best thing to do with it is going to be by the library, and transitioning is going to have to be some sort of light commercial type use, some sort of office space. And it's going to depend on how the city sells the property, if it's going to sell it, or if the city's going to lease it, if it's going to lease it. And I don't know those plans, obviously, because those are real estate conversations that they're not having publicly. So, but I assume they've got an idea on what how they want to handle that, whether they're going to sell it outright or whether they're going to lease it for some sort of compatible, consistent city use.
Mr. Norton?
Yeah, again, I'd reiterate my goals of continuing to develop office spaces. Just this last week on the Community Development Corporation, we worked with a developer here on the north side of town, on the east side of 183A, to be developing a 50,000 square foot office space. Shovel has not even gone in the ground, and it's already receiving some interest from potential leasers. So I think there's obviously a demand for that, and I think we can continue to go down that path. Specifically in regards to this property rights issue, I'm a strong conservative and proponent of individual property rights. I do think, though, I have a strong mediation background, and I do think that the best way that we can improve Cedar Park is by getting everybody at the table, regardless of their position, to come and sit down together and work together. My mediation skills lend themselves to that. I can facilitate good solutions for the city.
Ms. Boyer?
I fully support the sale of the parklands. Currently, we have 52 parks in the city and over 927 acres of parkland. That doesn't include the parks from the county and other private parks perspective. So I think there's plenty of parks in the city. Back in November on the Bond Advisory Task Force, a package passed for over $5.5 million that the voters agreed upon to build out Lakeline Park as well as bike trails and other park amenities. So from a growth perspective, I think there's plenty of parks, and this land is better used for building office space or some other product that can bring in revenue to the city.
What is the single issue you feel is not getting enough attention in Cedar Park right now? Mr. Bennett, we're going to start with you again.
I think that the single most important issue that this community needs to talk about is the appointment of city council members. And in my moments, I'm going to give you an overview of the process that's used. So 9 candidates came in on August 20th. the mayor said during the introducing the process of appointments, he said that we're the board of directors, that we're a corporation, and that we interview appointees to the city council this way. He told the members who were applicants for the position that they would be under test conditions, that they had to go into the other room. Meanwhile, city council went into executive session. So we don't know what they talked about. And then, game show style, each candidate had 10 minutes to answer questions. At the end of the game show, they went back into executive session and selected their candidate in secret. I think that's the most important issue that's facing Cedar Park. Currently,
Thank you, Mr. Bennett. Mr. Powell?
Thank you. I would like to see people getting more involved with their community, and been doing a lot of study lately on what that takes, and actually the Art of Neighboring thing that's come out that Doug James back there and Hill Country Bible and many other churches have been getting involved with it's been really perfectly timed for me, because it's the answer to a lot of what I've been looking for. But when I talk to our police department, they say that community policing really works, and that the tips that they get from having good, friendly relationships in the community are so important and help keep us depending on which study you look at, the second or third safest city of our size in Texas. But if you look at what it takes for people to step outside into the community and get more involved, the first thing they need to do is feel very safe in their homes and in their communities. I think we're doing a good job of that, but I'd like to do even better.
Mr. Caputo?
Yeah, I'll sort of piggyback off that idea. Back when I was on the council in the 90s, we didn't have any of these traditions we have today. There was no 4th of July festival, there was no tree lighting. We actually appointed a committee that came up with all those ideas. Their main purpose was supposed to celebrate the city's 25th birthday, but we also said, we're really just a community of neighborhoods. We're not really a city that feels like we are united. And we wanted them to come up with some things that would help create that sense of community. And they came up with those ideas and some others. And in the years since then, we've got things like the Heritage Festival and the Barbecue Fest and things like that. I think we need to develop some more of those things. I do think this Love Where You Live initiative has been amazing, because this is bringing people out into their neighbors and talking. And I think that's something that people don't think enough about, that how do you actually turn a place where 67,000 people live into a place where people feel like they belong, and that they know their neighbors, and that they're comfortable, and that they want to stay. And I think we need to develop some more things like that.
Mr. Norton?
Yeah, thank you. There are a lot of really important issues within the city, including public safety, transportation, things of that nature. For me, two things specifically go hand in hand. One is lowering our property tax rate, and the other is keeping city council fiscally responsible. My opponent's been making this race about his experience, and I think experience is important. So looking at his record, I think, is also a legitimate issue. His first year on city council, during his second term in 2005, he increased the property tax rate by 6%. From 2005 to 2010, he increased city budgeted expenditures by 54%. And over that same period, he grew city staff by 30%. And my opponent will probably say to you that, the city was growing rapidly during that time. And it was. It was growing at 19%, which is not 30%, it's not 54%. So I think we've got to be really accountable to the citizens and make sure that we are being really good stewards of the city's money. And also we've got to work to lower that tax rate to be responsive to the dramatic increases we've seen.
Ms. Boyer?
I think creating an active daytime population in Cedar Park is something that we need to strive for more aggressively. With the growing retail and residential that's sprouting all around us, we need people here working during the day, not having to go through Austin, Round Rock, Leander, other parts. So that way we can continue to grow our economy, keep people here, and it's a great place to live, work, and play, and we actually can mean that when we have a daytime population.
Ms. Talman?
Amend the city charter so that the selection of city council members goes back to the electorate where it belongs and is not made by city council, number one. And then along with that, land use and infrastructure are critical issues. Sensible growth means that you use the future land use map as a guide and you adapt it to market realities. We had a developer want to come in wanting to build us a $11 million skilled nursing and rehabilitation facility, and 4 people in our city council shot it down just because it was at 1431 and Arrow Point, across the street from 2 medical uses on each side. That would have brought 120 good high-paying jobs to our community, $54,500 in ad valorem taxes, probably $15 million in annual payroll, which can turn into about $100 million in annual economic activity. Why that was shot down, I'll never understand.
And now it's time for our closing remarks. At this moment, you will have 2 minutes, and we're going to go in reverse order that we've been going all night. So, Ms. Talmo, we'll start with you.
First of all, I want to thank you all for being here and caring enough about your city to become educated voters and learn more about who you'd like to see serve on city council. And I'd like to thank the Chamber of Commerce for graciously facilitating this forum. You know, I've lived in our city for 17 years, and I truly love the city of Cedar Park. I've had the opportunity to help participate in its growth, not only on city boards and commissions, but through so many other activities in our community. I serve as a chaplain of a Boy Scout troop and also as a charter organization representative of a Boy Scout troop. I've served on numerous not-for-profit boards and commissions here in our city, including the Camp Twin Lakes YMCA board. I've supported parkland development, transportation infrastructure, economic development throughout my city service, and I would be honored to be your city councilwoman on place 6. So remember the Talamo, come out and vote early. On April 25th, early voting begins at the library and at Randall's, and Election Day is May 7th, and Vista Ridge High School will be added as a voting location. I look forward to seeing you at the polls. Please go to my campaign website, mariatalamocampaign.com. You can volunteer, you can donate, you can tell me what you're thinking about, and I would love to have dialogue with you. Please do come out and vote. We look forward to seeing you on Election Day and at early voting.
Ms. Boyer?
There is a lot of moving parts right now going on in Cedar Park. We have a lot of projects underway. We approved a bond package back in November where we have a number of projects that are kickstarting. We need continuity and someone who understands the background of where we were and how we got there. And I have that breadth of knowledge being on the city council and understanding what were the decisions made and what needs to be done next. We are in a great position right now in Cedar Park. We are the envy of many cities, and we need to continue that momentum. And I am very lucky to be able to be appointed by the council. It was a very fair process, so let's not try to dilute it, saying there was anything shady about it. It was very fair to all the applicants. Both of on my left and my right were also participants in that process. So if they were so against it, they shouldn't have participated, and that's my perspective. So overall, I think that the city's in a great mode of growth. Let's maintain the steady leadership. Let's stay focused on the plans we put forth in the comprehensive plan, as well as the future land use map. And let's go in with a can-do attitude and get things done and not look at everything as doom and gloom and
Mr. Norton?
Thank you. Thank you again for the opportunity to be here and get to visit with all of you tonight. There are some really exciting things going on in Cedar Park, some really exciting things on our horizon. Bell Boulevard is one of those things, development around the Cedar Park Center. And in addition to that, I'd like to help find the Texas Museum of Science and Technology a permanent home here in Cedar Park. I think there's a great opportunity for the city to partner, do a public-private partnership with the museum that can be a real game changer for Cedar Park, and it can be a real game changer for Central Texas. I think projects like that are going to take some real boldness and some real vision and energy to get accomplished. They're big deals, but they are critical to Cedar Park's long-term success to make sure that we're not so reliant on property tax revenues and instead reliant on sales tax revenues. If we can get closer, we're currently at a 39% reliance on sales taxes and 61% reliance on property taxes. The closer we can get to a 50-50 split between those two, the more financially healthy we'll be for the long term. If you elect me, I will use my energy and boldness and vision for the city to get things like that, exciting projects for our city accomplished. Thank you.
Mr. Caputo?
Yes, thank you. I'd like to say I think this may be the most people who have ever attended one of these. I've been in a lot of elections, and give yourself a round of applause. So I want to address some issues here. It's one thing to talk about supporting public safety, and that's your first priority. It's another thing to actually do it. The reason why people had to raise taxes in 05-06 was to make sure we had a fire station in the Rancho Brushy Creek. It was a unanimous vote by the council to approve that budget and to take that tax increase. We also had to, as I pointed out, correct the fact that we were unable to attract qualified applicants to be our police force. So you don't play politics with public safety in Cedar Park, at least. You either do it or you get off the council, because we have to have a safe community first and foremost. Now, the vision that we've had for the city has been articulated different ways. I used to be really simplistic about it and say no one should have to go south of 620. That's a solid vision. I think most people would agree with that today. No one wants to actually go into Austin if you don't have to. Another way it gets articulated is to say, we want to be a full-service city. We want to have jobs. We want to have places for entertainment. We want to have good places to eat. Those are all good ways to describe it. The way I first thought of it when I ran back in the 90s was I wanted to help try to create a city where my kids would want to come back to after they grew up. And I've raised my children, and my oldest daughter has moved back to the city with my grandson. And not a week goes by that she doesn't come and tell me how amazing the things are that we have in the city. That's really what she's can't believe it. And she says, you guys did a really good job. And that means a lot to me. And that's why I want to run for the council again. I want to continue making that progress forward of making this a city that people want to live in. Right now, I think we're the premier city in Central Texas. I don't think there's any question about that. Businesses want to be here, restaurants want to be here, people want to live here. And we need to keep that going, and we're not going to do that by playing games about, oh, well, we don't want to raise taxes to fund the police department or the fire department. That has to happen when it needs to happen, and it may have to happen soon.
Mr. Powell?
Thank you very much. Again, I'd like to thank the Cedar Park Chamber for sponsoring the forum today, and appreciate everything that you do for local businesses. And those local businesses are booming. Our economy is booming. When I got on the council in 2005, each penny of sales tax was raising about $4 million a year, and that wasn't bad. It'd take us from 1973 to 2005 to get there. But I'm proud to report that we'll be much closer to $13 million per penny, and our economy is well diversified and getting better. And that has created downward pressure on our property tax rate, which is currently at a 12-year low. It's been lowered 3 years in a row, and I see absolutely nothing getting in the way of lowering it for a 4th year in a row this year. I knew going into this adventure some time ago about the enormous time commitment and the sacrifice, and the pay ain't great. But as I reflect in my time serving with our terrific city council and our incredible staff, I keep coming back to this same thought, and I've had it for a while. This city continues to do things that other cities our size either cannot or will not. State-of-the-art hospital, it's right there. Large successful retail center, there's one over there, and weather permitting on Friday, we're breaking ground on another one anchored by Whole Foods right over there. A DC quality Veterans Memorial, an upscale successful event center, very successful event center, ISO 1 rated fire department, 2nd safest or 3rd safest city, top 10 place to raise a family. Be proud. You live here. I mean, these things should make you smile and fill you with pride. We're richly blessed, and whether by choice or by providence, you and your family have found yourselves here. And together we have an opportunity to make this community even more than it has been before. And I'm as excited as I've ever been, and you should be too. My name is Matt Powell. I ask for your support and your prayers and certainly your vote. I'm very honored to be your mayor, and I would be greatly honored if you allow me to continue in this role. Thank you.
Mr. Bennett?
I'm Marshall Bennett. I'm a write-in candidate for the Cedar Park mayoral race. And if you go to the voting starting April 25th, just take my lid with you. You'll have to type my name in. And I want to agree with the mayor that this is a great city and that it's done a lot of exciting things. But I don't think it's enough to have a great city if you undermine the basic foundations of democracy. Currently, 4 of the city council members were originally appointed through a process that I found hard to stomach. 4 of those city council members were then given the opportunity to run as incumbents, an opportunity that I do not have. I was not given instant access to the political system. I'm an outsider. I don't know the first thing about running a campaign. I've had to do this on my own. And part of that is the reason that I'm a write-in candidate. I want to see Cedar Park be a great city. I want to see it be a destination city. But I also want to see it become a city that understands the times that we live in. There is a vast missing piece when it comes to city planning in Cedar Park. And that has to do with the old neighborhoods that are flooding. They just flooded again. To ask the Lakewood folks how it's going. Ask Riviera Springs and some of that area how it's going with the development project. Again, we just got a big bond election. Where are we using that? We're using that on road development in new area with a preference for a specific kind of citizen. There are more of us in Cedar Park. There is a vast missing mineral in the conversation that's happening in Cedar Park. I'd like to help you start, all of us, I'd like to help all of us start to think about how do we solve our problems in the middle. A couple of other things. How about public transportation? As a footnote in the comprehensive plan, it said that some folks were interested in that. Of course, they're my students and they're your friends and neighbors.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett.
Thank you.
I want to take this moment to thank our candidates for coming. Please join me in a round of applause. Thank you very much. Thanks to all of you for coming out tonight. We appreciate your support. This video will be on our website by the end of the week, hopefully by Friday. So if you know somebody who wasn't able to make it tonight, please pass that on to them at cedarparkchamber.org. I believe most of the candidates are planning on staying for a few more minutes. If you want to ask some questions that maybe didn't get asked, they'd be happy to stick around, I believe. So with that, we are adjourned. Thank you.